working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. Welcome to the program. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Alma, and to all our viewers. I'm Esther Adanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, an activist who rose to prominence during Myanmar's 1988 student uprising has been arrested in an overnight raid, his wife said on Sunday, in the latest blow to the anti-junta movement as the military cracks down on dissent.
The Minister of Health in Brunei said a high vaccination rate will not be enough for Brunei to lift its partial lockdown.
So we will be beginning.
In the Philippines, local government units, or LGUs, nationwide will roll out pediatric vaccination beginning October 29.
Kaloy Yulo became the new champion in the world competition of the FIG Artistic Gymnastics World Championship after his near-flawless routines in the final on Sunday in Kitakyushu, Japan, won him the gold.
First in our news, an activist who rose to prominence during Myanmar's 1988 student uprising has been arrested in an overnight raid, his wife said Sunday, in the latest blow to the anti-junta movement as the military cracks down on dissent. On Saturday evening, 52-year-old Kwan Min Yu, better known as Ko Jimmy, was arrested when soldiers raided a housing complex in the North Dagon township of Yangon. He was staying in a safe house together with two other activists who escaped from the back door, his wife Nilar Tain told AFP, adding that police had not informed her of his whereabouts. Nilar Tain and Ko Jimmy are part of the so-called 88 generation movement that challenged Myanmar's previous military government. They also played a role in an anti-government protest in 2007, nicknamed the Saffron Revolution, for the participation of orange-robed monks. The couple have been in and out of prison for their activism. Ko Jimmy's last stint behind bars was from 2007 to 2012. He was released as the generals loosened their grip to start opening up Myanmar in preparation for 2015 elections. After the February 1 putsch this year, the junta issued an arrest warrant for him, alleging he had incited unrest with his social media posts. Another 88 generation member, Ko Ji, confirmed Ko Jimmy's arrest, expressing worry for him and his family. Junta opponents, including allies of Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party and activists, have gone into hiding across the country, while some villagers have taken up arms, forming local militias to defend themselves.
In other news, Southeast Asia's regional bloc should do some soul-searching on its policy of the interfering in members' internal affairs to deal effectively with issues like the Myanmar crisis, Malaysia said Thursday. The comments came after the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, last week excluded Myanmar's junta chief Min Aung Hlaing from a forthcoming Leaders Summit, a rare rebuke. The junta has been accused of failing to stick to a roadmap drawn up with ASEAN aimed at defusing the bloody crisis that erupted after a February coup. Following the snub, Myanmar accused the bloc of violating its decades-old policy of not meddling in each other's domestic affairs, which critics say has made the grouping toothless. Saifuddin Abdullah, Foreign Minister of member state Malaysia, said he understood that the policy is almost sacrosanct in ASEAN and had been useful and practical in the past. He said, but when we are faced with situations like the one that is currently occurring in Myanmar, then perhaps ASEAN should actually do some soul searching. This statement is said on a virtual dialogue on human rights in Myanmar. As much as the issue in Myanmar is local and national, it has impact on the region, and we should also recognize the concerns of the other 9 member states, he said. The junta leader was excluded after authorities refused to allow an ASEAN special envoy to meet with ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar, mostly ruled by military since a 1962 coup, has been a thorn in ASEAN's side since it joined in 1997. Elections in 2015 overwhelmingly won by Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, or NLD, party ushered in the start of civilian rule, but with this cut short by the most recent coup. The Southeast Asian bloc has been under the international pressure to address unrest and the junta's brutal crackdown on dissent. Diplomatic sources said key ASEAN members like Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Singapore push for tough action to stop the group's credibility being tarnished.
Meanwhile, Myanmar's junta on Saturday said it would not engage in talks with coup dissidents, including members of Aung San Suu Kyi's ousted government, after a loyalist said dialogue was necessary to save the country. Take a look. On Friday, a spokesman for the military-aligned Union Solidarity and Development Party called on junta leader Min Aung Hlaing to open dialogue with coup opponents to find a way out of the crisis. But late Saturday, the junta said it cannot accept dialogue and negotiation with terrorist armed groups, including a shadow government of lawmakers from Suu Kyi's ousted administration. Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy Party trounced the USDP in elections last year, a result the military has alleged was due to fraud. Almost 9 months after seizing power and unable to stamp out opposition to their rule, the generals are under increasing international pressure to engage with their opponents. The UN said Friday it feared an even greater human rights catastrophe amid reports of thousands of troops massing in the north and west of the country, where soldiers have clashed regularly with local self-defense forces. Local fighters in the western Chin state were battling to stop 60 military vehicles from advancing further into the remote mountainous region, according to a member of a local militia group. Dissidents had also blown up a bridge to prevent the military from entering the town of Tang Klang. He said, adding army jet fighters had flown several times over the group's base.
Mayor Sara Duterte Sunday visited Cebu as guest speakers in 2 consecutive events: the inauguration of Liloan's new port and the General Assembly of the League of Municipalities of the Philippines Cebu chapter. Her arrival coincided with that of aspiring President and former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., who was also in Cebu to attend the opening of his campaign headquarters in Cebu City. The inauguration of Liloan's new port, Mayor Sara endorsed the presidential aspirant. Let's listen in.
2012. Ni ako dinhi kay hapit na ang piniliay, no? Karong umaabot na May 2022. So maghangyo ko sa inyong tanan nga dili ko kalimtan nga ikampanya sa inyong mga amigo sa taga Davao.
Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio confirmed on Saturday, October 23, that she and presidential aspirant former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. met in Cebu. She also posted several photos of her and Marcos Jr. during the meeting. The meeting happened during the birthday celebration of Representative Yeda Romualdez, wife of House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez. Both Representatives Martin and Yeda Romualdez were also seen in the photos of Sara Bongbong meeting on Saturday, October 23. Mayor Sara flew to Cebu City on Friday, October 22, after recovering from COVID-19, the same day that Marcos Jr. is in the city for inauguration of his campaign headquarters. Mayor Sara has rejected calls for her to run for president following her father's bid for the vice presidency, which he later took back on October 2 when, in a surprise move, had Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo, a trusted aide, run instead.
Meanwhile, additional military and police forces under Joint Task Force Central were deployed along the highway linking Maguindanao province to Cotabato City and Sultan Kudarat following a blast that took place along Gindulungan town on Saturday, October 23. The night of Saturday. Now, the blast also halted a 30-vehicle convoy of Representative Ismael Toto Maguinda Datu that was passing a street of the highway in Gundulungan near an army detachment amid a heavy downpour. An improvised bomb went off, but nobody was hurt, according to Lieutenant Colonel John Paul Baldomar, the Philippine Army 6th Infantry Division spokesperson. Maguinda Datu, who is running for provincial governor next year, believed he was the target of the roadside bomb attack, which occurred around 6:30 p.m. in Sitio Pansol. Army and police authorities now jointly investigating the incident cannot say for now if the suspected improvised bomb was meant for Maguinda Datu. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack.
Now let's go over to Vietnam, where the country opens to foreign tourists from November 20. The Southeast Asian country is desperate to revive its economy after months of lockdown due to coronavirus pandemic. Here's Eliana Faith Sebastian reporting live from Vietnam. Hello, Eliana.
Hello, Esther. Yes, that is right. And here is an update from Vietnam Insider. On November 20, at least 5 localities in Vietnam will be open for tourists, all of which being famous beach destinations. This includes Phu Quoc, island of Can Giang, Nha Trang of Can Hoa, Quang Nam, known for the ancient town Hoi An, and Quang Ninh in Ha Long Bay. All international tourists must have certificates showing that they are fully vaccinated for at least 14 days prior to arrival or have recovered from COVID-19. And those under 18 must be tested negative for the virus. According to the local media, visitors must have their destinations and places of residence confirmed in advance, and they must have a negative COVID test result after completing their 7-day itinerary before going to their next planned destination. 15 five-star resorts on Phu Quoc Island have been proposed to house foreign tourists by the local authorities, and then 7 of them will be selected for fully vaccinated tourists to stay in the first phase from November 20 to March 20 next year. In January 2022, or the second phase, localities could start signing up to accept foreign tourists depending on factors such as the vaccination and COVID-19 control status. In the second quarter of 2022, the complete reopening of the tourism sector is expected, but however, it still depends on the overall pandemic situation. Official instructions on receiving foreign tourists will be released by the Tourism Ministry during the initial phases. And on Thursday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that as of now, the country accepts COVID-19 vaccine passports from 72 countries and is discussing the issue, with 80 others. Back to you, Esther.
That's a good news, Eliana. Do you have travel plans now?
As of now, not yet. However, I do wish the borders will open so I can travel and see my family and friends.
But we're also looking forward for your virtual tour there in Vietnam. Thank you, Eliana, for your time. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Esther. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam, this is Saliana Faith Sebastian, and we live in interesting times.
In other news, the United States has barred imports from a Malaysian latex glove maker over alleged labor abuses. Joining us live from Malaysia, here's Alfred Balmes. Hello, Alfred.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Alfred.
The United States has barred imports from a Malaysian latex glove maker over alleged labor abuses, the latest firm from the country to face such as a ban. The relatively affluent Southeast Asian nation is home to millions of migrants workers employed in manufacturing and agriculture, but critics say they are often mistreated. U.S. Customs and Borders Protection announced the ban on Supermax gloves on Wednesday after a probe found indication of forced labor in the firm manufacturing operation. Agency official Anne-Marie Smith said CPB has ample evidence to conclude that the Supermax and its subsidiaries produce gloves in violation of U.S. trade law. Smith said, until Supermax and its subsidiary can prove their manufacturing process are free of forced labors, their goods are not welcome here. The agency did not give details about the alleged labor abuse at the company, which exports to over 160 countries and can produce up to 24 billion gloves a year. But migrant rights activist Andy Hall, who investigated Supermax, said workers' complaints range from being unable to leave factory compounds to cramped living conditions and unlawful salary deduction. Hall said he hoped this trade enforcement action against the company will lead to a swift change in the abusive living and work conditions faced by the company's workers in Malaysia. Supermax did not respond to a request for comment. Its shares were down more than 10% in afternoon trade on Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange. Malaysia's gloves markets, whose business has boomed during the coronavirus pandemic, typically employed workers from South Asia. The U.S. barred imports from the world's top latex glove manufacturer, Malaysia's top glove, earlier this year over alleged labor abuses, but the ban was lifted in September. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much for that update, Alfred. Stay safe.
You too. Live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Army, or PA, is now looking for 1,050 individuals to fill up its officer slots for this year. In a Facebook post on Sunday, Colonel Cerces Trinidad, PA spokesperson, said the number is part of the total quota of 2,109 slots for the recruitment of Army officers this year. The PA has allocated 400 slots for Officer Cadet Course, 400 for Officer Preparatory Course, Class 73 and 74, 100 for OCC Reserve Officer Training Course, 100 for Call to Active Duty Tour for Training, and 50 for Direct Commission. Trinidad said the recruitment aims to continuously build up a force to advance the organization's operational gains and finally end the insurgency in the country.
Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police has tapped its anti-cybercrime group, or ACG, to investigate social media pages allegedly offering fast passport appointments for a fee. Take a look. Now, this after the Department of Foreign Affairs requested the assistance of the PNP and the National Bureau of Investigation to get to the bottom of the scam. The ACG has been ordered to investigate this report and get to the bottom of this case. They are also ordered to arrest and charge the persons behind the scheme victimizing our countrymen, mostly our overseas Filipino workers, according to PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar in a statement on Saturday. DFA Undersecretary Brigido Udulay earlier asked the PNP and the NBI to unmask those behind the Facebook pages and groups that offer a swift passport appointment process to applicants. The DFA also earlier asked Facebook to identify and take down these accounts to prevent the public from getting swindled into paying for a service that is completely free of charge. The DFA also said appointment slots for all consular services are free. Meanwhile, gunmen killed at least 7 people and wounded 20 in an assault Friday on an Islamic seminary in a Rohingya refugee camp, Bangladesh, heightening tensions in the settlements after the recent shooting of a community leader there. Now, the attackers randomly shot some victims and stabbed others with knives at the Balukali refugee complex in Cox's Bazar near the border with Myanmar, a regional police chief said. The killings came as tensions mount in the camps that house more than 900,000 refugees from Myanmar after a Rohingya activist was shot dead outside his office 3 weeks ago. 4 people were killed instantly in Friday's attack at the Darul Ulum Natwadul Ulamu Al-Islamiyah Madrasa. 3 others died at a hospital in one of the camps that make up the Balukali refugee complex. Police didn't say how many people were wounded, but a medic with Doctors Without Borders who requested anonymity said about 20 people were hurt. Many Rohingya activists have gone into hiding or sought protection from the police and UN agencies since the killing of rights advocate Mohib Ullah by unknown assailants in a nearby Balukali camp. The 48-year-old teacher had become a leading moderate voice for the stateless community. Some activists blamed the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army for the killing. ARSA is the militant group behind attacks on Myanmar security forces in 2017 that set off a military clampdown and a mass exodus into Bangladesh by 740,000 Rohingya. It has condemned Ullah's killing in a Twitter statement and denied any involvement.
Yulo became the new champion in the vault competition of the Big Artistic Gymnastics World Championship after his near-flawless routines in the final on Sunday in Kitakyushu, Japan, won him the gold. Bouncing back from a 5th place finish in his pet event, the floor exercise final on Saturday, Yulo scored an average of 14.916 points in the vault final, enough to rule the 8-man field and take home the championship. In his first vault, he went for a Kasamatru routine, which earned him a 14.8. He then performed a Dragulescu routine on his second try, which he landed almost perfectly, meriting him a 15.33 for the aforementioned average. Hidenobu Yonekura of Japan took home the silver after averaging 14.866 points in his 2 jumps, while Andrei Medvedev of Israel won the bronze with an average of 14.649. Ukraine's Nazar Cherpuny, who topped the qualifying phase on Wednesday, made a huge threat to Yulo's bid as his first attempt gave him a 14.866. However, he failed to land properly on his own Kasamatsu stunt and settled for a 13.433 in his second vault for an average of 14.149, dropping him to 7th. Yulo is eyeing a second gold for the day as he is competing in the parallel bar finals.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Esther and I will be back right after this.
Makabuluhang talakayan.
Sapat na po ba yun? Papasok yung 30% sa indoor at 50% sa outdoor para to even break even? Ilan pong mga negosyo ang nagsara po dahil dito po sa pandemya?
malalim na komentaryo.
Ngayon, sinasabi essential goods and services. Pero nakita naman po natin sa Dolomite Beach. At may time clock yung mga bata doon.
Umaapaw sa impormasyon.
Ano ba ngayon ang allotted budget per voter? Yung hindi daw bakunado po ng mga empleyado, hindi sila pinapasweldo. Oras!
Pero hindi rin nagpapahuli sa kakulitan.
Merong nag-file for the presidency. Hinimok daw siya ng mga alien at ang kanyang plataforma po ay palakasin ang Wi-Fi. At ito si Ali magde-demonstrate paano mag-swimming na may face mask.
Kaya, nood na kina Ali Soto at Pati Daza sa ASPN. Ano sa palagay nyo?
Kung kayo po ay may pinagdadaanan, daanan nyo lang. Huwag niyong tambayan.
Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga.
Oras, alas 9:26 na po ng umaga at nagbabalik po ang ASPN.
Mapapanood sa Net25 at mapapakinggan sa DZEC, Radyo Aguila at Eagle FM 95.5.
Posibleng palawigin ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte ang Visiting Forces Agreement.
Tumaas pa ang reproduction number ng COVID-19.
Isinagawa ang turnover ng Linap Goodie Bag sa San Miguel, Bulacan.
Ang maghahayag ng official statement ay ang pamilya.
Hindi lang sa aspetong pang-espiritual hinahangaan ng Iglesia ni Cristo.
Mapaunlad ang kabuhayan ng mga differently abled person.
Bukod sa pagtaguyod ng wika at kulturang Pinoy,
inaasahang bababa pa ang bilang ng mga Pinoy na walang trabaho.
Sumusunod sa mga alituntuning ipinatutupad ng gobyerno bilang pag-iingat sa COVID-19.
Isa sa naging dahilan ng pagtaas ng tubig dito noong mga nakaraang araw.
Handa ng Senado at Kamara na magpasa ng mga panukalang batas.
Umunlad ang peace and order sa bansa sa panahon ng panunungkulan ni Pangulong Duterte.
May ilang nagkaroon ang Delta variant ng COVID-19 ang nabakunahan na. Magandang gabi, Pilipinas.
Welcome back. The Minister of Health in Brunei said a high vaccination rate will not be enough for Brunei to lift its partial lockdown, as healthcare capacity will also be a key deciding factor in the country's path towards living with the endemic COVID-19. Now, YB Dato Dr. H.J. Mod Isham, H.J. Jafar, said in his COVID-19 press briefing that apart from reaching the 80% double vaccination target by the end of this year, the healthcare system must not be overwhelmed with a potential rise in severe cases. Responding to a question on what is required for Brunei to reopen its economy, the minister said it is vital for the country to hit the vaccination goal and ensure the healthcare system is not stretched thin. In the country's move towards a new normal, he added that the government will monitor whether the healthcare system can cope with an increase in COVID-19 patients who are critically ill. He also said that the number of ICU cases is currently under control at the National Isolation Center. Earlier this week, YB Dato Dr. H.J. Mod Isham said the government will not strive for zero coronavirus cases to restart the economy, but learn to live with an endemic COVID-19 instead. Brunei has been in a partial lockdown for 11 weeks after experiencing its worst COVID outbreak since the pandemic began. While the Sultanate has set the 80% threshold for first dose vaccinations, a night curfew is still in place until October 31, as the number of coronavirus cases has not stabilized yet.
Meanwhile, Vietnam plans to reopen the resort island of Phu Quoc to vaccinated foreign visitors in late November. Authorities said as the country looks to reboot its tourism industry after almost 2 years of closure. Phuoc, which lies around 10 kilometers or 6 miles off Cambodia in the Gulf of Thailand, boasts white sand beaches and crystal clear waters, as well as mountains and thick jungles. It attracted around 670,000 visitors and earned more than $18 billion from international arrivals in 2019, which authorities hoping to turn it into a tourist mecca in style of Thailand's Phuket or Indonesia's Bali. From November 20, charter flights for international travelers with vaccine passports will be welcomed to the island. Tourists will need to show vaccine certificates together with a negative COVID-19 test result before being allowed in. A previous plan to open Phuoc to international visitors in October was abandoned due to low vaccination rates among residents.
Meanwhile, back here in the country, business establishments allowed to open in their localities, which are issued a safety seal, will be granted an increase of 10 percentage points in operational or venue capacity with the issuance of the latest joint guidelines from 5 government regulatory agencies. Now, the latest directive is contained in the supplemental guidelines relative to the implementing guidelines of the Safety Seal Certification Program signed by the heads of the Department of Health, the Department of Labor and Employment or DOLE, Department of Interior and Local Government or DILG, the Department of Tourism, and the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI on October 1st. In a statement Sunday, DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez said the increase in allowable occupancy was meant to encourage businesses to apply for the safety seal and strengthen health protocols in establishments and workplaces. Local government units or LGUs, contact tracing applications, and other contract tracing applications will be considered in lieu of the StaySafe.ph, while DILG is working on the integration of StaySafe.ph with other contract tracing applications. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año meanwhile said that in the absence of the StaySafe.ph digital tracing application for those establishments or offices applying for the Safety Seal certification, the LGU mandated applications they are currently using will be considered.
Family gatherings are common during Christmas season, especially in the Philippines, which kicks off preparation when the Burr months begin. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way families celebrate. The Department of Health, or DOH, and the Philippine National Police, or PNP, continuously issued advisories that gatherings are allowed only if it's within the family bubble. Inviting people outside the bubble increases the risk of COVID-19 transmission, the DOH repeatedly reminds. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar also said in a video message to reporters on Sunday that although they are aware of Filipinos' penchant for celebrations, it is not yet time to be complacent. Eleazar also warned establishments to follow protocols or else their businesses could be closed down. Metro Manila is under alert level 3 until October 31, with 30% indoor capacity allowed for those who are fully vaccinated and 50% outdoor capacity regardless of vaccination status. The government said alert level 2 is possible if COVID-19 infections will continue to decrease.
Staying in the country, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship and Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion dismissed reports that some employees are imposing no jab, no pay policy. Reports continue to circulate that some business establishments withheld the salaries of their unvaccinated employees. Meanwhile, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. supports the proposed no jab, no policy, but he also said people should understand the two kinds of rights, individual and common. Take a look.
First of all, at this point in time, the employers are not implementing anything like that, no? No job, no pay, no? That's not being done, especially with all of those who bought, no? We have checked, nobody's doing that. I don't think it's correct na bakunado lang ang customer namin exclusively and yung empleyado namin ay hindi bakunado.
The global common of saving the humanity is much higher than the individual rights. We have to know if the individual has the right to refuse for vaccination. I believe also the companies have the right to preserve its institution from being contaminated with the virus.
Na AstraZeneca vaccines ang lumapag sa NAIA Terminal 1.
On a World Polio Day, the Department of Health, or DOH, the World Health Organization, or WHO, and the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, or UNICEF, and Rotary International urge all parents to vaccinate their children against preventable diseases, especially polio. In June 2021, the Philippines announced the end of polio outbreak in the country following 18 months of outbreak response, which vaccinated over 11 million children, many of whom received polio drops during the COVID-19 pandemic. Polio is a highly infectious, crippling, and sometimes fatal disease that can be avoided with a vaccine. Children under the age of 5 are most vulnerable to contracting polio. In the Philippines, children under 1 year old receive their primary doses of polio vaccines during routine immunization, 3 doses of polio drops, and 1 dose of inactivated polio vaccine. However, in 2020, nearly 500,000 Filipino children missed out on oral polio drops for routine immunization due to challenges in accessing health services during the pandemic. On October 13, 2021, DOH launched the Catch-Up Immunization Campaign starting in the National Capital Region. The campaign aims to reach children under 2 years old with missed vaccine doses, including those for polio. While we have successfully eradicated polio, we have to ensure that there will never be an outbreak again, and it begins with vaccination. We call on parents to ensure that your child gets their routine immunization so they can be protected against polio and other vaccine-preventable diseases. DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III said in a news release on Sunday. Duque said this month the DOH launched the Catch-Up Routine Immunization to ensure delivery of national immunization program services to children.
Back here in the country, local government units or LGUs nationwide will roll out pediatric vaccination beginning October 29, according to Secretary Carlito Galvez, the chief implementer of the National Task Force Against COVID-19. Now, following the pilot in the National Capital Region, or NCR, on October 15 and 22 for the 12 to 17 age group with comorbidities, Galvez said provinces will also be included this week.
So we will be beginning the nationwide rollout on the October 29. Hopefully, the vaccine expert will be meeting on Tuesday, and we are appealing that we need to expedite the vaccination of the children.
Meanwhile, Philippine National Police Chief General Guillermo Eleazar directed all concerned police units and offices to coordinate with the LGUs to help secure the vaccination of minors with comorbidities.
Meanwhile, health authorities in Laos have launched a new enhanced COVID-19 vaccination certificate with a QR code that will allow for greater authenticity and digital verification. According to a report by the Center of Information and Education for Health, the QR code on the COVID-19 vaccination certificate will ensure that the certificates are authentic and can be more easily monitored as well as being for greater use when traveling abroad. The new QR code vaccination certificate was officially launched on Friday last week in the presence of Director General of the Department of Hygiene and Health Promotion, Dr. Pone Pasut Onapong. The Ministry of Health, in collaboration of the World Health Organization and other development partners, developed the QR code on the COVID-19 vaccination certificate to assist in verification and record keeping. Personal data as well as vaccine information of the recipients will be recorded in the COVID-19 vaccine database before the QR code is created and printed on the back of the vaccination certificate. All new vaccine recipients will now receive a vaccination certificate with a QR code. Meanwhile, those who have already been vaccinated against COVID-19 and have received a vaccination certificate without a QR code must wait for advice on how to receive a new version.
Staying in Laos, Laos is among 72 countries listed as being approved by Vietnam for entry into the country upon its reopening. A list of vaccines recognized as vaccine passports was released last week, according to VN Express. Representatives from these 72 countries, including Laos, have presented COVID-19 vaccination or recovery documentation to the Vietnamese Ministry of Foreign Affairs with temporary recognition granted. People traveling from outside the country with the recognized documents proving that they have either been fully vaccinated or have recently recovered from COVID-19 can enter Vietnam and are eligible for the 7-day quarantine at centralized facilities. Meanwhile, Laos has reported 392 new cases of COVID-19 across the country with new 2 deaths. The National Task Force for COVID-19 Prevention and Control reported that 6,579 tests were conducted across the country over the last 24 hours, with 392 new cases confirmed. There were 389 COVID cases of community spread, 3 imported cases across the country.
Now, going back to Malaysia, the country has administered at least 1 dose of a COVID-19 vaccine to more than 25.36 million people, or 77.7% of the general population. According to the Health Ministry's COVID Now website, more than 23.76 million people, or 72.8% of the total population, have now been fully inoculated. Malaysia eased domestic and international travel curbs for those fully vaccinated against the coronavirus as a fierce outbreak slows and inoculation rates rise. In a televised address on Sunday, Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob announced fully inoculated people can move freely within the country, as well as fly overseas without special permission. But the Prime Minister warned people to continue abiding by rules such as mask wearing to keep the virus in check.
Asian markets were mixed Monday, following last week's gains, with investors keeping a worried eye on a fresh COVID outbreak in China that could drag on the already stuttering economy. Long-running worries about inflation continued to cast a shadow over trading floors, though a healthy batch of earnings have tempered those concerns in the past couple of weeks. Reporting by tech titans, including Amazon, Apple, Samsung, and Microsoft, are on the agenda this week and will be closely followed for an idea about what impact supply chain snarls and rising prices is having on their bottom lines. Their forward guidance will also be of interest as they contemplate tighter central bank monetary policies and a possible hike interest rates next year. Tech firms are usually more susceptible to higher borrowing costs. News that troubled China: Evergrande had paid interest due on a bond before Saturday's deadline, provided a much-needed boost to confidence, though it remains to be seen whether it can meet obligations on other notes due before the end of the year. There were gains in Sydney, Seoul, and Jakarta, but Tokyo, Singapore, Taipei, and Manila fell.
In Vietnam, Deputy Prime Minister Le Van Tan has signed a decision approving the railway system plan for 2021 to 2030, with a vision to 2050, which sets a target of building 9 new railways by 2030. Under the plan, the railway industry will renovate and upgrade existing railways, connect with international transport routes, prepare capital and resources to start construction on a new routes, with priority given to north-south high-speed ones and those linking Gateway Seaport, international airports, and the main railways in major cities. Specifically, the sector will upgrade 7 existing routes with a total length of 2,440 kilometers. The total capital needed for both upgrading and building railways will be around 200 trillion Vietnamese dong, or approximately $10.5 billion. By 2030, the volume of goods transported is expected to reach 11.8 million tons, accounting for about 0.27% of the market share, and the number of transported passengers will reach 460 million, accounting for a market share of about 4.40%.
Smokestacks belch noxious fumes into the air from a massive coal-fired power plant on the Indonesian coast, a stark illustration of Asia's addiction to the fossil fuel, which is threatening climate targets. Now, Indonesia has committed to be carbon neutral by 2060 and to stop building new coal-fired plants from 2023. But despite this, the facility is undergoing a $3.5 billion expansion that will boost its capacity. Take a look.
Kakap merah segala macam sini, kerapus ini. Kakap merah. Hah?
Kalau sekarang gimana?
Nggak ada lah. Susah. Pada lari kemana tau ikannya ini? Dulu di pinggiran ini banyak ikan. Iya. Dulu banyak ikan emang sini. Sekarang susah, bekas ketimbun-timbun ini.
Kondisi pencemaran itu ya mau tidak mau masyarakat ya istilahnya harus beradaptasi dengan kondisi seperti itu, walaupun mungkin kalau misalkan kita mau ini ya banyak juga dampaknya gitu, dampak buruknya. Cuman ya sebatas batuk-batuk atau ya udahlah paling pengaruh ini udah berobat selesai gitu.
South Korean firm N+ Corporation Limited is investing 5 billion pesos in the Philippines to put up its electric vehicle manufacturing facility, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA, reported Friday. PEZA Director General Charito Plaza said N+ will be the first e-vehicle manufacturer in the PEZA ecozone. N+ e-vehicle factory will be located in Negros Occidental, according to Plaza. Its operation will involve the manufacturing of electric cars and electric jeepneys. Plaza and N+ Chief Executive Officer and Chair Yong Yong-An signed a memorandum of understanding on Wednesday for the joint venture between PEZA and Korean firm. While the Korean firm is investing 5 billion pesos for the factory, PEZA will be providing a 30-hectare land to link Prospect Industries to N+ to Plus for joint investment ventures and other related agreements for eligible projects of PEZA. Plus is a manufacturer of fire trucks and firefighting equipment and is now expanding to e-vehicles.
Thank you very much, Esther, for keeping me company today, as always.
You're welcome, Alma. You always have me. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Really appreciate that, Esther. And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Sa weekdays prime ng Net25. Ang mga balitang pumapagaspas, ihahatid sa atin ni Emma Tiglao.